You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. That's really what all of this comes down to, is being willing to receive help. And we all crave that. We all need that. We should not be going at it alone. And so being willing to receive help, sharing with other people what you're working on, what you're working towards, what's on your mind, all of these things, that is the only way, whether you're saying it to your colleague, you're saying it to God, it's the only way to actually have help offered. Hello there, and thank you so much for joining me for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia. I am a self-care specialist as well as a certified astrologer, and every week I come here to sit down and share a little bit from within with you. It is really, truly my belief that the little changes that we make in our thinking or how we're approaching things can lead to really big changes, necessary changes, desired changes that we are craving in our life. So if that feels like something that you are wanting to go through, if you're wanting a change, if you're wanting things to be a little bit different, I want you to remember right here, right off the bat, that sometimes just starting really small and changing and choosing to move forward in some kind of way, whether it's how you're thinking about things or how you're approaching things, it can make all the difference in how you're feeling. In fact, it's kind of funny because if you hadn't listened to my episode last week, I shared with you guys that I just got a new job. And actually last Monday was my first day. So I'm heading into my second full week of work. Just all of that happened so fast. But as I've been sharing my story of how I got this job and everything that I did to really feel like I committed fully to manifesting this in my life, although we do have no control over how fast things come. But it was just truly such an amazing manifestation story. And so as I've been sharing this story, so many people have been inspired and been like, oh my gosh, if you can do it, then I can do it. And I think that is such a powerful mindset for us to be in, because when we look around and we see people doing amazing things like making more money, changing careers, starting really amazing side projects, pursuing their hobbies, living a passionate life, all these things that maybe we are craving, but for some reason we've told ourselves, I can't do that. When we see them do it, we have two choices. We can either say like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that. And maybe we can view it with jealousy, or we can view it with criticism because we're actually jealous. We're secretly jealous, and we put that down because we don't want other people to know that that's actually what we want. Or we can be inspired by that and say, that's exactly what I was wanting. And if you can do it, then I can do it, because there is enough for all of us. So in a way, this theme of challenging our way of thinking, being positive, being proactive, this is at the heart of today's episode. We're going to be talking quite a bit about the power of teamwork, the power of managing yourself in a positive way. But first, and this, I promise this will actually tie in together, we're going to do our astro check-in. So if you're new around here, every single week I share a little bit of what's happening astrologically. And the important thing to know is that this week, so the week of March 6, 2023, we are starting this week out with a full moon in Virgo. So whether you're listening to this on Monday from the Patreon or you're listening to it Tuesday or later, just know that we're heading into this week with this big, beautiful full moon. This full moon is in the sign of Virgo. It's called the worm moon. That's the March full moon. And, I think this one symbolizes a lot of things. First of all, changes in the air. I think we all feel that. We know that spring is around the corner. In fact, we're 2 weeks out from spring, you guys. That is wild to say. And astrologically, there's a lot that is happening with this full moon. So Saturn, it is quite a slow moving planet. It takes about 2 to 3 years for it to move through a sign. Very, very opposite of how the moon moves. The moon moves around all 12 signs in about 28 days. So quite a difference from that. And Saturn, since January of 2020, has been in the sign of Aquarius. And tomorrow, the same day as this Virgo full moon, Saturn is finally changing signs. It's going to be in Pisces for the next 2.5 to 3 years. Now, I don't have the exact date on that because I think I'm going to actually do a really big deep dive into Saturn and Pisces here coming up. But I want you to know that with this big transit of Saturn changing signs, you are going to feel that rocking this full moon as well. It's moving into the same sign that is opposing this moon sign. So we have Sun and now Saturn in Pisces right now, opposing this Virgo full moon. Now, Pisces and Virgo are sister signs. And it's interesting because they truly function in such different ways. Pisces tend to be, or the sign of Pisces tends to have this ethereal quality to it. It's very Neptunian. It has this dreamlike quality. It's very feelings oriented. It's compassionate and it is very helpful. It's very much has a servant's heart, but in a very out of the box kind of way, in a very mystical and spiritual way, which could not be more different from how Virgo works. Virgo, the sign, is all about practicality. It's about being solutions oriented. It's about using the data to understand what decisions should be made differently to make the situation better. And so to be having two really strong influences between these two signs, it gives you a strong option of where you need to go right now. You kind of have to look at both sides and figure out what is going to bring you into better balance. Full moons are always a time of illumination. And sometimes that illumination can be a positive moment of like, wow, we are celebrating, things have come to a head, and wow, I see everything so clearly. At other times, it's like, whoa, I need to shine the flashlight on this area and really figure out maybe what I need to let go of because there are things that haven't been working and I'm ready for them to start working. So I have a couple questions that you can be asking yourself this week. One of the first things that I will be thinking about, and I suggest you do too, is what's not working anymore? I think this is a valuable question for us to ask ourselves, especially around the time of the full moon. What's not working anymore? This is a powerful question because it allows us to think of things very rationally. One, what is working? And then two, getting really clear about what's not working. Then, of course, once you've narrowed that down, you can start asking yourself like, well, what am I ready to let go of? Every single one of us is carrying around things that we probably don't need to carry anymore. And so the full moon can be an amazing time for that. And these two things might go together. Maybe what's not working is the same thing that you're supposed to let go of. Only you know that answer. Another question you can ask yourself is just what feels heavy? What feels restricting? What feels like it is totally in your way right now? This would be another wonderful place to start narrowing down and figuring out what you're ready to ditch. Another question that kind of goes with the same thing is like, how can I free myself? Am I the one in my own way? Am I keeping myself from being joyful, from being happy, from accepting life as it is on life's terms? How can I free myself? And then finally, is there a better way to move forward? Honestly, this is probably my favorite of the bunch and something that I have been challenging myself with quite often. I think the power of that question is just a moment of humility that for some of us, we kind of move around feeling like, no, my way is the best way. At least, I don't know if you're like that, but I can tend to be very much that way. It's just when you put a lot of thought and effort into how things are and you build systems for in a very particular way, it can be very hard to ask yourself that question, is there a better way to move forward? But I tell you what, there's no better time than a full moon to look at the things in your life with that fresh perspective, with that ability of seeing things in a new way, of having that sense of illumination. If we go back to that, what this full moon represents, and we look to the sky and we see all of this light shining down, and we can use this time to challenge ourselves and really ask ourselves, is there a better way to move forward? I'm just going to pause here and share a quick story with you. So in 2021, the beginning of 2021, my partner Dave joined my business full time. So I had run a wedding photography studio, and he had already been doing a lot of videography work, and we were just going to expand. And so he joined my team full time, and it was a lot to learn how to work together in that way. I mean, we had already learned how to work on the wedding day together, but just in terms of the business functioning together. And then, a couple months into our year, he got really, really sick, and he has still been sick. And going through that kind of a health scare, being hospitalized, being in and out of the emergency room, having pretty serious heart issues, that was crazy. And I did not have a backup plan for if something were to happen to him. And I honestly never had a backup plan for if something were to happen to me. Obviously, I also had a team of amazing photographers, and I had backup plans for them if something were to happen to them, but I never, ever banked on the fact that anything would happen to us. And for a long time, all the way into 2022, I was in such a deep place of resistance about the fact that I was just stuck on the fact that, oh my God, it had to be Dave. Dave's the only one who can do this. Dave is knowledgeable. Dave is talented. Dave is my videographer. Like, we've already built the business around this decision. I did not know another way out. And it ended up being one of the hardest, I'm trying to think of the word, we just could not, we were at an impasse. He could not work, and I was fixated on there was no other way. And what's crazy is finally, now that I look at it, I'm like, actually we figured it out. I'm not going to say fast. It was not fast, but Dave got sick in end of August 2021. And by April of 2022, I had expanded and hired a new team of videographers. So I guess how many months would that be? Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of a long time, 8 months of struggling and trying to figure it out and wondering if he was going to be okay and get better, and working with doctors and just banking on a lot of things that were totally out of our control, that were unknown outcomes. And then finally, after, it wasn't going to work any other way, I pivoted, and I finally expanded. And I look back now, and this is one of those things where, of course, it seems better once you have the answer, right? Now that I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. I ended up meeting incredible videographers that were wonderful to work with and shot amazing videos for our clients that year. And Dave was able to have that off of his plate and focus more on his healing, which honestly, he should have been doing all along. But the reason I share this story, and it's honestly a very vulnerable story for me to share, is the fact that it is such a huge example of the fact that I wish that I would have been able to ask myself that question earlier. Is there a better way to move forward? I feel like if I wasn't in such a deep place of fear, and I'm not beating myself up, it's just something that I've spent a lot of time processing and looking back on. And I just feel so clearly now that if I would have been able to not be in such a deep place of fear, that I would have made a different decision earlier and saved us both so much of the stress and the constant butting of heads that we were both going through. And honestly, I regret not being a better partner, understanding what he was going through on a health perspective. But I share this because, well, and especially in this area, sorry, I'm just thinking about this Virgo moon that we're having. Virgo is a sign that is not only a problem-solving sign. It is ruled by Mercury. It has everything to do with communication and data and information, but it also has to do with our daily routines, our practicality, our way of managing our health, our diet, our way of being in a routine that serves ourselves. And so in a way, it's useful to think about things that also have to do with your health, that have to do with your day-to-day life, like thinking of the day-to-day part of running my business. I probably could have used some of this Virgo moon energy when problem solving, especially back then, and definitely now. I'm sure there are new things. Like now we've come to a full, complete cycle of that. We've actually just completely pivoted, and everything that I've been through with Dave helped me realize those things. And now I'm sitting, wow, it feels amazing to be sitting here just on the other side of finally being able to close that chapter of my business running in that certain way. And I'm stepping into this new role and a really big change and being able to focus on a bit from within in a different way. And it all feels just so, so good. But I can honestly say that this right now where I'm sitting and saying I'm feeling so good is because I spent more than a year, like almost a year and a quarter of a year. So like 15, 16 months working on this idea of like, is there a better way for me? So no matter where this meets you, it doesn't matter if you have been sitting with a problem for years or a year or a few months or a couple days. If you are sitting in a place where something is just feeling heavy to you or feeling restricting to you or just getting you down, I want you to remember that you can begin to turn the wheel for changing that. And just because you do that, sometimes you're going to have quick answers, and sometimes you're going to begin a process that may take many, many, many lunar cycles to work through. And I will say, the new moon is usually it's the beginning of the lunar cycle. So it's usually the best time to start working on formulating a new goal in mind. But if you haven't been doing that, I want you to remember that this full moon or any full moon is a wonderful time to say, I just need to catch myself right now. I need to meet myself where I'm at, and I need to let something go. If you can do that for yourself this week, I promise that you will be in a better position, because awareness is everything. And just remember, as you meet yourself with a ton of self-compassion this full moon and this week, just to don't feel like you have to put a time limit on anything that you're at. It's okay to be in the journey. It's okay to be exactly where you are. Sometimes you're going to have highs. Sometimes you're going to have lows. Sometimes you're going to go through scary, unknown periods. Sometimes you're going to feel really good about what feels like it's in front of you. It is all part of the process. And it's something worth celebrating, because these are the ups and downs of life, right? Like I was going to try to weave that into the same way of saying, like, this is the path. This is the journey. So, all right, you guys, that is enough, I think, on this month's full moon, plus a little encouraging speech. Let's take a quick break and let's talk about the power of teamwork when we get back. Okay, so I mentioned this last week, but I'm just going to dive right into this story right now. Dave and I are listing our house for sale. We are getting ready for a new adventure. And of course, I will share more about that when I have more details on the next step. It's too early right now. But the first step in us getting there is listing our house. Well, truly the first step of us getting there was for me to land a job. And now we're putting part 2 of our plan into place, which is put the house up for sale. Now, we've been thinking about this for quite a while. This is an ongoing project since right around Thanksgiving. And now we're finally to this place where, okay, like the carpet cleaners are coming this week. The realtor was here today helping me stage our house. If you listened to my podcast last week, I told this story about painting the walls and how as we got finished painting, definitely the wrong shade of white was used. So we learned a lot about color correction and we went to the store again and gave it a good old round 2. And so spent all of this weekend, all yesterday and today, touching up the baseboards and just getting the walls ready, fixing the mistake from last week, and just putting a lot of love and energy into this house as we get ready to put it on the market. And gosh, there's just been this whole week, I've been reflecting on the things in my life that have brought me to this moment that I'm in. I'm going, just so you're aware, I'm going slightly off on a tangent, but I think it's worth sharing a little bit of this story with you. 6 years ago, when I was still working 2 jobs, I was working in a position helping businesses with technology, working for a big technology company. And I could have stayed there. And I think I could have been really happy while doing that. But I had to know what was it like running a business? Could I do it? Could I run a successful wedding photography business? Would I have fun doing it? And so I took that leap instead. And the reason I was reflecting on my previous job before I did my own business is right around the time I was leaving, I was going through a really hard time with my manager. He was not a great personality fit for me. Sometimes I thought he was, and then I feel like what I ended up turning into was like his project. And the more that he tried to kind of force me to be a certain way, the harder that it got, because I really felt like I was being pushed and criticized a lot. And that I don't believe that criticism in a way that makes you feel small or less than is a powerful way of being a leader. And so at that time, I was very, very sure that I would never want to work for another person, because I had had some good experiences with managers, but I'd also had 2 very intense, very bad experiences working with different men. And that was hard. And so going into this job, looking for a job this time around, I was hopeful that it could be different. And I knew what I wanted. I wanted a great team to work with. I wanted amazing people. I wanted good coaching, good leadership, and I wanted people who respected me. And I knew that part of that is that I had to also show up different. And one thing that I've been really affirming over the last 6 months to a year that I've been working on manifesting this change and transitioning careers is just this mantra that I am not the same person that I used to be. And I did an episode on that 2 weeks ago, so I shared more on that. But the reason I bring this up right now is the fact that this last week at work, I was really able to see the ways that I have changed. My level of confidence has just skyrocketed. I was reflecting on that with Dave, because Dave and I actually met at my previous job. And so he knew how I was when I showed up. And it's not that I was not confident in myself. It's just, I didn't feel like I could show my confidence to others. I wore a lot of insecurity on my sleeves, and insecurity is something that I think a lot of us struggle with. I'm absolutely still dealing with that. I'm feeling insecure about, okay, do I CC these people? Do I reply all? Do I invite them on this calendar? Are they going to think I'm weird? The little things I am absolutely still in my head over. That is just me figuring things out. And I'm very logistical, and I'm accepting of that of myself. But in general, I'm just more confident in my ability to communicate, my ability to take things on, my ability to speak up for myself. And it has been so gratifying, so rewarding to take some moments this week just to be like, wow, I have grown so much over the last 6-7 years. And I, did not give myself performance reviews when I was doing wedding photography. I always have been working on evolving and developing my skills, but it's not like I sat down with myself and I was like, okay, what are your towering strengths right now? What areas do you need to improve on? It was like the things that I was improving on when I was self-employed had more to do with the problems, just dealing with things as issues as they came up. If I wasn't being a clear enough communicator, okay, that's what I need to work on. Okay, if my systems aren't working, okay, that's what I need to work on. And so it's not like I have had some feedback in terms of how I've come across or the ways that I've grown or all of that. And so right now has been this way of me taking these moments to realize how much I have grown and changed. And for me, just there's been so many parallels, and I'm going to tie this all back together. As we get ready to list our house, even just Dave and I were coming back from a little bit of a date morning this morning. We were driving down same road that we always take to get to our house. But I had this flashback of the very first time that Dave and I were driving into the neighborhood when we were just before we had gone under contract, before we bought the house, anything. It was just the first time we were on our way to possibly see this townhome, right? And I guess everything just feels really nostalgic right now. And I've been just thinking about how much things have changed. Even from last summer when Dave and I, like I mentioned earlier, we were going through a really hard time between his health and the business. And I'm just feeling so grateful for where we're at right now. And honestly, it has been a true testament to the fact that there is amazing power in teamwork, and one person cannot lead all of the change in a relationship. One person cannot be, even just me, I cannot be the catalyst for all of my own progress even. So whether it is how I'm showing up in a job, or the way I want to change in my life, or the way I want to transform my relationships, the way that I am in a loving relationship, I cannot do all of that by myself. I mean, I could, but I don't think I would be as good. And what I mean by teamwork, I'm not saying that everybody needs a romantic partner, but what I am saying is that I believe that we need each other, and there is a power in teamwork, and finding people that you can be on a team with is one of the best things that I think we can do for ourselves and to get things done if we're trying to accomplish things. And so I want to dive into this topic just a little bit more. And you'll have to bear with me if I sound a little all over the place. It is because I'm recording this late on Sunday night and I am a little bit tired right now. But honestly, I'm drinking my cup of tea and I'm so excited to be here chatting with you. It's like the thing I look forward most to each and every week. But I want to go back to that car ride I was just sharing with you about. Me and Dave driving in my little car that I've had for the past 11 years. And we're driving into Thornton and we're meeting a realtor, and it felt so big. Everything felt so big. We were living in this little apartment that was above a dear friend of mine's garage. We had been trying for over a year to buy a house. We were not homeowners at all. I was terrified at the prospect of owning a house. And we're getting ready to take this leap, and we're driving down the street. And that was the beginning of a new road for Dave and I. And I'm using him because it is a good analogy right now for teamwork, but I promise I'll share other thoughts on how you don't need to be in a loving relationship in order to benefit from teamwork. But for Dave and I, at that point in our relationship, and I do think it would be fun to have him on the podcast in the next little while to help just talk about some of these, expand on some of these things I'm going to share with you with. But at that point in our relationship, we were very much in survival mode. We had been going through thing after thing. And as soon as I started running my own business, I think I just put myself into a constant state of survival mode. And, as soon as we moved into the house, it was later that year, we moved into our house. We had to learn a lot about how to live together. We'd already been living together, but how do we want to own a home together? Who does what? Who sets up the accounts? Who pays goes through the administrative part of paying the bills? How do we want to manage our money together? How do we want to plan for, updating the house, who picks the paint colors, who decides on the furniture, all of those things we had to figure out. And I will say that one of the things early on about Dave and I is that we both have very strong personalities and we both have a vision of how things should be. And one of the ways I always describe Dave and I is that like we are like a Venn diagram. I mean, I think all people are, but we are the kind of Venn diagram where we both have very like bright colors that we are. And then when we overlap, sometimes there's not a big area that we overlap, but the places that we do overlap, we're both very sure on, and we tend to make really great decisions together. But early on, we had no space to even figure that sort of thing out. I mean, I was just still in survival mode. I was, oh my God, this table's on sale. It's a great deal. I've always wanted a white table. Boom, just bought it. Luckily, he was cool with that. The couch, I got my way on the couch, and turns out 3 years later, it's not comfortable to have movie nights on. It looks really cool. We get a lot of compliments on it, but we don't have like a cozy space to curl up and just spend time hanging out. In fact, one of our late night talks just the other night, we were both sitting on the couch. We had been there for a couple hours, and I just looked at him and I'm like, I feel like we're in a canoe right now. Like that's how this couch feels. It feels like as comfortable as sitting on a boat, especially after a couple hours. So I was wrong with that one. We probably could have bought something more comfortable. What you living, you learn, right? And then, over time, once we got over the stress of actually closing on a house and moving in and finishing wedding season, and then there was a short period of time where things, just started to come together a little bit more. Of course, then 2020 happened and we're spending a lot more time at home, and he was actually able to work from home. That also changed things because up until that point, 5 days a week, he was out of the house 11 hours a day from working a 9-hour shift and driving an hour there and an hour back. Like he didn't get to spend a lot of time here at the house. And so that changed too. And then, it's like we did one room and then we worked in another room, and just slowly, literally over the past 3 years, we've really made this house into a place that we are really proud of. We really love it. And now here we are getting ready to sell our first house and step into the next phase of our partnership, our life together, a new adventure, and it feels so good. But okay, going back to the Venn diagram, and this goes back into learning how to be a team and the power of teamwork. We bought a car last year. We desperately needed a car. My previous car was 11 years old, and he had a car that was, let's just say it was a lemon. So we had to get rid of that. We knew that was a must do. And I was, oh my gosh, I was terrified to go through this car buying process with Dave. And I mean that with love because, like I mentioned, we just have this small area of style that we overlap on. But this is where things have really changed for us. We've started to look at, okay, where can we come together? Where can we agree on this thing? And so what we did is when we went to buy the car, it was like, okay, you tell me what are your most important things? What are the values you're looking for in this car? Okay, you want something that's a long-term investment. You want something that looks cool. I wanted something that was reliable. I wanted something that was a good investment as well. Okay, we both know we want to make a good investment. Okay, what kind of brands are we interested? We narrowed it down that way. Okay, well, what kind of styles do you like and do I like? Okay, and we did process of elimination. And I tell you what, we ended up with the best car for us. We both agreed on it. It was a seamless process. We went right in, found the car, agreed, boom, done. I was so scared we were going to be at each other's throats and couldn't decide. And that hasn't been the case at all. And I feel like over the past few years, we've just learned how to make decisions together. And it feels so good. And I have to say that it feels really good expanding on that in different areas of our life. And one of the things that our couples therapist said to us last year, he said, the more, the more. And this is a thing that has just stuck with me over time, is the more of what you focus on is the more of what you're going to get. So the more that you take things personally and sensitively and fight with each other and try to get the other to say they're sorry or whatever, that's the more of what you're going to get. But the more you agree with each other and you focus on what's going right, the more of that you're going to get. And so as we've been working on this, the more, it has truly begun to unlock such a good sense of teamwork. And what I've noticed is by focusing on what's going right, so I'm bringing this full circle back to the very beginning of this podcast, the more that you focus on what's going right, the better chance you have of bringing the more of that into your life. Now, is this always easy? Absolutely not. Is it something that you can practice and hone? Absolutely, it is. But you have to begin in the areas that you want to see change in. For so long, Dave and I have been together for 6.5 years. I would say for 6 of those years, I desperately wanted to be in a really great partnership. I always, talking about manifesting relationships, I've always just, when I've closed my eyes and really thought about what was important to me in a relationship, I always thought, I just want somebody who I can grow with, somebody who truly loves me, where our relationship has good bones to it. And I just want to feel like a 50-50 team, like together we can do anything. And I've always felt that with Dave. I've always felt like we made a good team. In fact, we were work husband and wife before we ever started dating. We've always made a really good team because we really push each other. But I would say for a lot of the first, 4 or 5 years, and this, would come and go. But I would say that we'd have good teamwork, but we would get stuck in the pushing part where we would be trying to help each other grow, or we'd be frustrated. We'd be at that place where we needed to compromise or work things out. And neither of us was willing to do that, or we didn't know how to do that. And that's a big reason why we started going to couples therapy a while ago, is just, we were like, we really want to make this work, but we just have no idea how. We are so totally stuck. If we are left to our own devices, we will not be able to figure this out. In fact, maybe that was us asking, like, where can we actually move this thing forward? That was the key for us moving things forward. But of course, it was more than that. It came to us deciding, do we want to be a team together? And I realized, and I know so many of us have this, where we are resentful because our partner doesn't help us out. I think a lot of women feel that way. And I also think a lot of men have their own kind of resentments. They don't feel the compassion that they want from their wives. They don't feel the support. They don't feel the admiration. And a lot of that is because we are not being supported in the ways that we need. We need the teamwork. We need the wherewithal. We need the mental load taken off of our shoulders. We need a partnership. And so we're at an odds, right? Because our needs aren't being met. But I will say that in the last 6 months or so, it just feels like Dave and I have just fallen into a new rhythm. And I think it's for a few different reasons. One, I think we've both pursued getting to know ourselves better. 2, I think we've really, really worked on accepting each other for who we are and not who we wish the other person was. And 3, I think we've really focused on trying to shortcut the communication process, or maybe another way of looking at it is like changing the dance that we do to get to the place that we know we both want to get at. Like, what we really want is to agree, to decide on something, to have fun together, to be supportive of each other, to feel loved by each other. So let's cut out everything that makes us feel like we're not getting there and just get straight to the point of it. And honestly, it's been a game changer. It's felt really, really good. And part of the reason that I bring all of this up right now is because as I've been nostalgic, as I've been reflecting on everything that's transpired to get me to where I am right now at this current juncture of my life, I'm just feeling so grateful for Dave, especially because he has been a really huge force in my life of helping me to be more confident. He's expected that out of me. He's said, there's no reason that you shouldn't be this amazing person that I see you to be. You want to start a podcast? Start a podcast. You want to become an astrologer? I love that for you. Become an astrologer. You want to change careers? Okay, what are you going to do? Every single time he has just been like, step into yourself. I see you. Just keep going. And it's taken me a really long time to believe that too. But I feel like he was not the first one ever to believe in me, but he's been in a position to allow me, to support me into growing into that version of myself. And I will just say, this is where I want to expand on that. I don't think you need a partner in order to have that. I think you need people in your life that you feel comfortable sharing where you want to go with. So this could be friends that you text with, a good group of girlfriends. It could be your work colleagues. It could be your family. It does not matter what role of a relationship these people play in your life. It's a matter of having people you can be genuinely honest with. And I think that's what so many of us are missing, is that we're in sometimes we're on teams with people who are not good teammates, who don't have our best interest at heart, who maybe it's not that they're bad people. They just don't understand that they affect you as much as you affect them. But the people that you surround yourself with, those are the people that are going to help you figure it out. Because I don't know about you, but when I've tried by myself to figure it all out on my own, I don't have as good of ideas. And it's hard for me to admit that because I like to think that I can strategize anything. But I've really, really started to give more importance and more credence to listening carefully to what other people have to say. And I think this goes back into the exact same thing we're talking about. I think listening is part of being an amazing teammate. And you cannot just expect other people to listen to you if you don't carefully listen to them, if you don't consider their ideas, if you don't sometimes say, could it be that way? Will that work? Will we accomplish the same thing? If the answer is yes, try saying yes. That is one of the biggest things that I have learned over the past several years is just because it's not my way doesn't mean it's the wrong way. How many of you are laughing right now? I think a lot of us get stuck in the idea that how we want to do things is the only way to do them. And how many of us have also learned the lesson that sometimes when things go not how we expected or how somebody else made it to be, it goes just as well, and we can take the pressure off of ourselves. Honestly, that has been one of the best parts about really focusing on the power of teamwork in my life is the fact that the more I allow Dave to help me, my mom to help me, my sister to help me, my boss to help me, my community to help me, my friends, the more I allow other people to help me, the less I have on my own plate and the more I can show up to enjoy those moments with them. Here's a really quick example of this. This week and this past several weeks, getting the house ready to be on the market has been wild. We've been having to get so much done so fast. And today, after the realtor had to come over and she was amazing and we got so much done, but I just felt overloaded. And Dave and I were going to go out for a little while. He loves to go bowling. And so he had asked me, hey, I really want to do a bowling date with you this weekend. But I get very easily sensory overloaded. I don't enjoy being in loud places with tons of other people and lots going on. I can do it, but I've already felt like I spent all of last night cleaning. I've got so much on my mind right now. I'm doing this new job. We were running all over yesterday doing errands. As soon as the realtor got done and I thought, oh my gosh, Dave wants me to go bowling with him right now. I just I just almost started crying. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, are you really tied to going bowling? Like, is there anything else you'd be up for doing? Like, and I just thought, I think I just want to be outside. Like, Dave loves basketball. So he is still recovering from heart issues and some autonomic stuff. And so, but he has been starting to shoot the ball around, the basketball. And so I was just like, what if we went and shot the basketball around instead? And immediately he was just like, yes, absolutely. We could still do something we enjoy doing together. But it's a different change of pace. So we went and did that. And there was a couple other things on my to-do list. I have a to-do list all the time. And I was like trying to get things done. And we had to book some travel. And so I needed to get that done. And so Dave just, as soon as we got home, he just started making dinner. And I was able to sit there in the kitchen. We spent time together. We got these things done together. We got everything taken care of off the list. And as we were sitting down to dinner, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, you cooked, you're such a good cook. Like, this is perfect. And I got to sit here and cross this administrative kind of stuff off my list. And he was like, yeah. And you know what would have happened is if I would have asked you to make dinner, you would have been thinking about everything in your to-do list the entire time. And you would have been thinking, I need to get done with making dinner as quickly as possible. And you would have, rushed through it, which is what I often do with dinner because I've got so many other things on my list that I don't make dinner well and I don't enjoy it because I've got other things I feel like I need to do. So with him taking on that, he loves cooking. It's a way for him to serve me, to serve us, to make sure we're taken care of. He enjoys the process. We get to spend time with each other while I knock things off the list. Oh my gosh, like this was a great example of teamwork. And I was so much more stress relieved and he was stress relieved. And we were able to actually sit and enjoy dinner together. But I can't tell you how many times that we have done the opposite, where he's gone up and done something different. And I just say, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I'll put it on myself. And I don't accept the teamwork. And then I'm grouchy all dinner long because I don't get a break. It's just going through the motions. And honestly, that experience was one of the main reasons that I thought, tonight when I talk on the podcast, I really just feel like I felt called to share this story on the power of teamwork. Because you never know the little things that you are either feel afraid to ask for help for, or you're not sure how to go through that awkward part of saying to the people that you are in everyday partnerships with, hey, we need a little change here. I'd like things to be different here. I'm ready for things to move forward in a better way. And maybe part of that better way is not me doing more. Maybe it's me doing less. And how can I do less? The way to do less is by having that teammate. And I'm going to leave you with one final thought here. If you feel like this is all so silly, I am not in a relationship, or my partner isn't like that, or that's just not how things function for me, can you do me a favor and start thinking of working with the universe as your teammate? There is a power of teamwork. There are ways to say, universe, I do not know how I'm going to get this done, and this done. I could really use some help. I'm driving through this parking lot. I need a good parking spot. I need some help. Universe, give me that parking spot. Universe, I don't know how I'm going to get some time off. I need some peace. This week, please carve out some time for me. Boom. You never know. You might have that meeting canceled. That person in front of you might pull out of their parking spot. There is truly, I think, the energetic line that I'm getting to is being, I just realized it. It's being willing to receive help. I really need to pause because I'm almost going to have tears in my eyes. That's really what all of this comes down to, is being willing to receive help. And we all crave that. We all need that. We should not be going at it alone. And so being willing to receive help, sharing with other people what you're working on, what you're working towards, what's on your mind, all of these things, that is the only way, whether you're saying it to your colleague, you're saying it to God, it's the only way to actually have help offered. and you have to be willing to receive it. And if I can share anything with you, if you're picking up on what I'm putting down, it feels so good to receive help. Life feels so much better if you can open yourself up to that. That is where we're going to end it today. You guys, I've talked way longer than I thought I was going to when I sat down here, but honestly, I really felt like, well, you're going to have to tell me if this episode connected to a bit from within you. I think for me, I just felt, I've got like little goosebumps on my forearms right now. I just feel like there's something very special happening in this moment. I want to say I'm very grateful for you taking the time to listen and sit down with me today. If you want more, there are a ton of places you can find me. First place, check out my website, abitfromwithin.com. There you can get a ton of my resources, including meditations, lunar books, all kinds of things. You can also join our Patreon, patreon.com/abitfromwithin, where you can listen ad-free, support my work, tons of amazing stuff on Patreon, an entire guided meditation library, yoga library, amazing people, so much more. You can check it out. And then, of course, if you want more of the astrological stuff, you can follow me on TikTok. That is where I share a ton of astrology information. But mostly, I think the podcast is an amazing way for us to stay connected too. So please subscribe. If you have a moment to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, I would so appreciate it. Usually we end every single week with a card drawing. But you guys, I just realized that all of my cards are packed up. How could I have done that? I might need to buy a new deck that I can just keep in my purse. Okay, so today there is no card drawing. I will work on a remedy for that. Universe, help me figure out a card drawing. But I think there's enough in here. In fact, if you have a deck of cards, I'm going to say, go pull a card right now. And then if you were really inspired by it and you want to DM me or send me an email sharing your story, I would love it. All right, you guys, thank you again for tuning in today, and I'll talk to you next time.